Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Qalb-e-Quran. I'm Sakina Datu. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 256, La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in religion. I find this ayah so very interesting because on the surface of it, it seems to imply that everyone is free to choose whether they want to believe in any religion or not, and if so, how. Now, this is particularly important for us to dig deeper into, given the anti-religious and secular environment that we all live in today. Is this freedom guaranteed in the Holy Quran? And if so, then how do we reconcile this with another ayah, for example, 101 in Surah Al-Ali Imran that says, let there arise out of you a group inviting to all that is good, enjoining what is right, and forbidding what is wrong. They are the means to attain success. So how do we make sure that we are able to do both these things, which on the surface seem to contradict each other? Now, luckily, I have with me my dear sisters to help me explore this topic in depth. Sister Zakira Shairozdala is an Islamic scholar and joins us from Toronto, Canada. And Sister Uzma Naqvi, she's a holistic, transformational life coach based here in the UK. Salamun alaikum, sisters.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Since you are an Islamic scholar, Sister Shairoz, and this is Qalb-e-Quran, I'm going to go to you first and ask you the ayah that I quoted and the topic of our discussion today, La ikraha fid din. What does it actually mean, and what is the context in which this was revealed?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. And mashallah, truly a very well-chosen topic and very much in line with what we are discussing in society these days. This is actually something that is, you see it in social media, you see it in the discussions, that this whole concept of la ikraha fid din, there is no compulsion in religion. And what does this really mean? And it's important for us when we look at any ayah. Of course, this is what we're taught, that we should look at the Shan and Nuzul. Why was it revealed? Under what occasion? What was the historical context of this ayah, as well as what are the preceding ayah, what are the ones that come after it, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is definitely, this is when we talk about context, that he's definitely explaining something and taking us to a deeper meaning, an enhanced meaning. So you can never actually take out an ayah and just hold it on its own. You do need to see who it's being told to, why, and what is the maqsad, what is the goal. So we find that this Ayatul Kursi, mashallah, which we all inshallah should know, and we are so we recite it without thinking, but it actually is verses that really make us think, because it's all about faith and it's all about remaining true to our faith. So let's go to the ayah that that we see here, that is before the one about the La ikraha fid din. So this is just about 2 ayah before, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the messengers that he has sent. And he's explaining here that they have, the ulul azm prophets, etc. And then that, Nabi Isa has come. Now we get to this part at this, that when Allah is saying that I've sent you messages through these various prophets. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had willed, when the new prophet would come, then the people who were believing the past one would definitely just take on the next one. If Allah had willed, the generations succeeding them would not have fought each other. Clear proof has come to them. But they differed. You know why they differed? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is showing us that he allowed the people to differ. This is the beauty of Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it actually incumbent on all of us to seek him and to look for the faith that makes the most sense to us. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is confident that you're going to come right here. This is the truth. This is where you will find the answers to all your questions. And this is why we find Islam continues to be the fastest growing religion in the world. No one has forced these people to come to the faith. They have come themselves. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues in this ayah. But they differed. Allah allowed them to fight. And some of them believed and some of them disbelieved. And if Allah had willed, they would not have fought each other. Again, this thing that Allah could have stopped the wars. But Allah allowed them to do this, to discuss it, to figure out what makes the most sense to them, whether Iman will come to their heart or not. And this is Allah's plan. Then Allah does what He intends. This is His intention. Now, we see here that in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly told us, He gives us this beautiful respect, dignity, this respect for our intellect, that we will look at the two ways and we will see the logic that this is definitely the right way. And this is Surah Insan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how He has created man from when he was nothing. And then He gives him the ability to see and to hear. And then He equips him with the ability to see the two paths. Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. And here, interestingly, the two paths are called gratitude and ingratitude. So the minute you accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you've been grateful that He has guided you. If you take this path of those who have gone astray, you have become ungrateful. Now we go from that ayah where we talked about the different messengers right here in Surah Baqarah, and this takes us then to the ayah in question where we talk about La ikraha fid din. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us here that human beings can accept whatever makes sense to them. There is no compulsion in bringing this iman to your heart. You have to respond to this actually fitrah of human beings that looks for its Lord. When Nabi Ibrahim's story, we find that he's looking at the stars, he's looking at the sun, the moon, he's saying, where is my Lord? Who is my Lord? This cannot be him. This shows this human being has a need to find his Lord. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us here, the right course has become clear from the wrong. So these two paths become clear to you. There is no compulsion, but when these two paths become very clear, now Allah gives us this incentive, really, that if you now have disbelieved in shaitan and you have believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happens is whoever does that, you have grasped the most trustworthy handhold. So once iman comes without compulsion, you've taken it. Now you hold on to that rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with no break in it. And what's interesting here is that when we look at the tawil of these ayah, what is the hidden meaning? What is the deeper layer of this stronghold of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? At first glance, definitely this is about the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the fifth Imam tells us this stronghold is none other than the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. These are the prophets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and the Imams that help us hold on to. And this is a rope without a break. It's a very strong rope. And so the sixth Imam says that holding on to this rope means holding on to Mawla Ali alayhi salam all the way to Imam Zamana ajalallahu ta'ala farajum sharif. So we find here that there are conditions to this acceptance of the faith. Once you have not been compelled and you've taken Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all your heart, Allah gives you this rope. You hold on to it and He gives you the prophets and the Imams to guide you. And must explain a little bit here about this devil that we leave behind. It's very important because the word that is used here is taghut, and this refers to the devil. What's the devil? What does it mean? We think of it as this entity who was disobedient, but the devil, when it becomes a part of us and we let him guide us astray, Khuda na khasta, God forbid, what happens is the devil, this word taghut refers to the inordinate, which means the unsubmissive. Remember, Islam is synonymous with submission. So when we take Allah's hand and His stronghold, we are submitting whatever He asks of us, whether it's in how we believe, what we believe, and how we practice the faith. So inordinate, the non-submissive is the taghut. When you leave him, the rebel is one of the explanations of the word taghut, the wrongdoer. This is leaving those sins behind, the strayer, leaving that other path altogether. There is no more sitting on the fence. There is no, one day I'll kind of follow him a little, then I'll come back on this path. No, you're leaving it all. La ilaha illallah. There is no other God now. Shaitan is no longer in the picture. And so the word taghut in this verse, when it is brought with this la ikraha fid din, is about leaving all our devilish tendencies and the activities which mislead us. Iman is a first step, genuine belief. It's a rejection of the devil, but then it means we take over whatever Allah loves, and we lose, and we put away whatever Allah hates, so that the walla and the tabara comes into play here. So taghut in this context is literally leaving anything that exceeds legitimate limits. And in this Quranic terminology, and the tafsir tell us this very amazing, really deep explanation of what rebellion and transgression means. When you are leaving the wrong path and holding on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this means there is no room for disobedience. The first stage of this disobedience that happens when you listen to this taghut and you go with him is that you are acknowledging in principle that obedience to God is right, but you disregard its practice. This is actually called fisk, it's transgression. So when you take faith and you take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you bring iman into your heart because you have wanted it, then obedience to God is hand in hand with that. You cannot just say, I love Allah, and then you do not obey him, because then you still are doing a taghut thing. You're doing this satanic thing. The second stage, then Allah takes us in, this transgression is that you not only disobey, but you also reject the obedience in principle. You refuse to even, you basically take another God. And then the third stage, that takes us to rebellion, where now you are only imposing your own will. You're disregarding the will of God. And then when you reach that point, you have become a taghut, a true disbeliever.
So, I mean, basically what you are trying to say explain this very well is that you can't pick and choose. Once you have accepted that this is the deen, you can't really say I'm going to do bits of it and not whichever part, which is a common thing today. People say I believe and I have my own personal relationship with Allah, and you do you and let me do me, and this is very, very common these days. We are sort of picking and choosing a part of it. Now that itself is something that I want to explore with Sister Uzma too, because I think we can look at it in two different manners. We can look at it as what I said, pick and choose, or we can say it's a journey of somebody who starts somewhere small, and maybe they are overwhelmed, and that you don't discourage as long as they've taken something, allow time and allow knowledge to come, and for them to move towards that. And I will come to your Sister Uzma next to explain this to you. But Sister Shairoz, if somebody says, okay, there is no compulsion in religion, I don't want to pick and choose, I simply don't want to pick up this religion, it is my choice, Allah has told me, I don't want to practice it, that's it. Now, these people who say that, this can be our children, this can be our sisters, our spouses, this can be people within our community. Not that they can be, this is happening. And a lot of times there is such a huge trauma that we as parents or as, again, spouses, can break up a marriage because you're moving in two different directions. Even as a community, it breaks you because these issues are there. And people are saying, Allah has told us we have a right, whether we want to practice it or not. So in that context, what do? Do you say, oh, no, Amr bil Maruf, I'm going to guide this person, I cannot leave you, I cannot let you, go into that, ditch that I see over there? Or are we going to say, Allah has said it, it's their choice. If they don't want to follow it, that's up to them.
Well, this definitely takes us back to this Shan-e-Nuzul. Why was this ayah revealed in the first place, the La ikraha fid din? In fact, this is not just us right now in 2023 who are struggling with family members saying, I don't really find this the religion to hold on to. there are definitely two ways. Either you leave them or you keep guiding them. But the third option of forcing them is not actually uh, is not recommended. And this takes us to the Shan and Nuzul. Basically, this ayah was revealed in Medina when a man named Abu Hasim, he had two sons, and they were Christian. They were dealing with Christian merchants. Sorry. So what would happen would be that they would import merchandise from abroad into Medina and back and forth, etc. And his two sons were dealing with the Christians a lot. What happened was that the Christians, because they had the strong missionary way to deal with people, had sort of really taken them into their wing, and these sons were really getting interested in Christianity, so much so that the father was extremely worried. So Abu Hasim comes to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he says, I request you to bring my children back to the religion. Now this guidance is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, that we have our prophets, we have our Quran, we have our imams, we use them and we use our own knowledge to inspire and to educate and to do hidayat. But what he said is, should I bring them forcefully to Islam? Is it okay if I force them, I whip them into believing? This is when the verse was revealed. And that la ikraha fi din, because the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam basically said to him that iman cannot be forced, because definitely then it creates this hypocrisy, or it creates someone who is actually working against the faith, although they are calling themselves Muslims, but they're actually saying things that make the religion even look bad, because their iman is not true. So it's also a serious answer, this la ikraha fi din, a serious answer to those who think that Islam was spread by force or by the sword. That even the in the literature and in the big philosophers and of the time would say that this is an ayah from their Quran, that they cannot force. So alhamdulillah, that is there to show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't force anyone. But you know what? I want to take us back to the to one or two ayah that I have prepared to show us all here today, because they really take us into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us this option that, you know what, if this doesn't make sense to you, by all means, you can, where are we? Do you see the PowerPoint?
No.
Somehow I have, let me stop
Which
it.
is the ayah though? Okay.
Let me see, because sometimes when you share screen, you go somewhere else. Okay, here I am. Let me try it again. You see the ayah now, inshallah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let me take it from the slide here. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually in this hadith Qudsi tells us something very beautiful. I mean, this is quite interesting, that if you're not happy with my orders, a person who is not happy with my orders is not patient with the struggle. This sabr that we have to do is often when our faith asks something of us. There's various types of sabr, right? One sabr is when Allah asks you, wear hijab, pray 5 times a day, fast, give khums, give zakat, forgive those who are your relatives. You can't do qat'i rahim. These are commands. You have to be patient with those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends. Those are sometimes in the shape of an imtihan and sometimes in the shape of a command. So if you're not happy with my patience, if you're not patient with my commands, you're not thankful for the bounties, not content with my gifts, you're being ungrateful, you're not choosing this right path, and he should look for another Lord other than me, and he should get out of my universe. Kind of harsh words we feel here, but actually Allah is trying to say, is there another Lord? Can you find another God? You can't. I am Allah. You really have no choice in this matter. If you say get out of my universe, this is Allah's universe. We can't go elsewhere. We are in his realm. We are his subjects and we must obey. Let's go back to after what happened with this ayah of Surah Baqarah, where Allah says, La ikraha fid din. The next ayah after this is, because 256 is La ikraha fid din, this is 257. Allah promises once you bring Iman, Allah is the ally of those who believe. Now, The wording used here is Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. Allahu waliyul ladhi. This word wali is Allah saying, I'm your guardian. Once you have taken this rope in your hands, I am the one who will take care of you. And in this then comes this whole thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us our wali, Imam Ali alayhi salam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he is our guardian. He gives these walis, these guardians, our imams, who will guide us towards the faith and help us to stay on the straight path. And the context of wali in this, when you had asked this question, Sister Sakina, that if our children, for example, or someone in our family doesn't want to believe, where do we go from there? The word wali, when we look at the tafsir, says it means literally to be close or to stand immediately by. So this can be used to the closeness that exists between brothers, friends, neighbors, and helpers. And a master is also called wali because of the hold over his slaves. Allah is our wali. We are his slaves. He is our master. Also, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he exercises authority over us. Like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever's master I am, now Ali is his master. Similarly, where does this wali take us? This whole concept, anyone who is our guardian. This means it could be very much our parents, anyone who is in charge of our well-being. So Islam is not into forcing people to accept the faith, but definitely we have this concept of encouraging people, of giving hidayat, of bringing, look, the concept of compulsion would not, shows us that Islam doesn't have this compulsion. Otherwise, we would never have given, the Holy Prophet ﷺ would have never given the kuffar space in Medina, in Mecca.
Okay.
Right? There would never have been a jizya that, we're going to protect your life and your property and your honor, the security of a human being. Even if they don't want to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is saying you're still going to be protected. But if you come to me, I will guide you and I will give you guidance through those who are your guardians. And
Fine.
Therefore, we need to guide and we need to be guided. It is part of the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order for our iman to get strengthened.
Great. And now the issue is, okay, this is all good when we have seen the light and we've seen the guidance, and then here you are, you have accepted it, and all the beautiful ayah you quoted about Allah's help now is with us. We've got this wali to guide us. But this is when you have already accepted it. You've got that through that first stage of saying, okay, I have accepted. Sister Uzma, like I said, some of our children or friends, or especially the environment we live in right now, it's so anti-religious, it's so secular, and the concept here of spirituality is very individualistic. It's like me, I know myself, I know, my God, and I have my own personal relationship with him, which sometimes, yes, there is components of that within Islam, but not always, because, Islam is also a set religion in which has to take a certain form. So this concept of, first of all, if somebody says, I have a choice and I don't want to practice this religion, I just don't want anything to do with it. So that's my first question to you. As wali, that Sister Sharoz was explaining, what is our role? What do we do? And sometimes I think specifically if you are that wali in any capacity, it becomes, you almost are thinking you have done something wrong. This is my mistake. This is my fault. That how could it possibly be that, you reject your religion? So this is the first question. But then if you connect that to also the pick and choose one, is that a bad thing? Is that something that we are not allowed to do? Or is that a journey, Sister Uzma?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Jazakallah khair once again for having me here. Absolute pleasure to be with both of you, amazing ladies. Beautiful question. And I'd like to address it by zooming out a little bit, if you allow me, because I think we need to take a look at like a bigger picture at 15,000 feet high view of where we currently are. and bring some context to the whole discussion that we're having right now. The picture isn't very pleasant when you look at it from a different angle, because if you look at what the family system was, even here in the West, never mind our cultures, even here in the West, it was an entirely different picture to what we see today. One man used to be able to do one job in a factory or a coal mining position or whatever, and he would be able to sustain an entire household. One woman used to be able to nurture an entire family, bring the children up in a value system that they saw fit, and everybody universally agreed with that, and that was the system. It worked. To whatever degree it worked at the time, that was a systematic approach of the roles and how the children are being brought up, and what the custom was and what the value system was of a society, community, family, and an individual, right down to the individual. Then the entire family system was torn apart because the women were made to believe that they have to be equal. So they want to go to factories too because they can. And so they stepped out and they went to the factories. And the question is, who was taking care of the children when that happened? Oh, then they brought in TVs and games and plenty of channels to get them busy. Now there are two adults working full-time jobs, barely making ends meet as of today. Like that's the reality of what we're living right now. Children are in daycare centers or after-school clubs, and the government is very happy to pay for that childcare. Ask yourself why the government is happy to pay for that childcare. Why are they okay to support you when childcare vouchers or system, I'm talking about the Western countries where we live, from as young age as 6 months to 9 months old, 1 year old, they're saying, send your children to centers. Because they need to have the children. They need to have their hands on our children, right? Because they have their own agenda as to what needs to be taught to the kids and how they need to be integrated to the society that they live in. They want them to belong, right? And let's not even unpick that one, because we all know that's a whole separate episode, isn't it, of discussion on what's going on and what's being taught and what we're presented with in this day and age. So as an overview, if you look at this systematic approach of what's happened, the whole family system in itself is not what it used to be, remotely close to what it used to be. So when we compare, let's say we compare our kids to ourselves even, it's not a fair comparison because of the two very, very different societies we belong to and we come from. Because everything in the society today is extremely, I mean, I don't even know what words to use, but it's literally pulling our children away to the opposite side of where we're trying to get them. And by the way, this is not a coincidence. We have to think about that. There are billions, trillions of dollars being spent to make this happen, right? There are major think tanks that are working on a very strategic agenda, and it's working like clockwork, and it takes decades for it to get to that point. And we are wrapped up in it, right? And one of the reasons we are wrapped up in it is because we chose this environment. We are here. This is where we live. This is where we eat and sleep and do everything else that we do. So on the one hand, we chose to live under the water. And on the other hand, we are asking our kids and our societies to never get wet. If we look at that in a deeper sense, it's quite a tragic story, really, how it's unfolding in front of ourselves. Every decision has a consequence, and it's a harsh truth, right? But the luxuries that we live in today, the easy life that we are living by today, has come at a cost. So, you would be shocked at how many parents I speak to of really well-known families who are in absolute desperate situations when it comes to parents and children relationships, especially when it comes to them straying from deen. How many mothers ring to say, my daughter has just removed her hijab, my son is doing this, my daughter is going there. You know, I had just today an example. I had a mother told me earlier today that, you know, ironically that we had this conversation today, that she found explicit text messages in her 13-year-old daughter's phone being sent to other girls. I mean, that's the state we're in. This is people of our community, right? So these are true stories, not made up. And I know a lot of parents that are thinking of moving from the country. And I'm sorry to have to speak about this. I'm sorry to have to bring this and talk about these things, because it's not an easy thing to say. But this is the reality of where we are, right? If we don't talk about it, then who will, right? This is the context and what we need to bring to the table. In our families, we have made certain topics so taboo that even mentioning certain words at our household at dinner tables is considered haram. It's like we can't even like talk about these things. But sadly, our kids are already deeply exposed to these things today. Day in, day out, they're living that life, right? So us not speaking about these taboo subjects, us not bringing these things to the table, makes matters a lot worse, because we're shutting the door on our children's faces. When there is an issue, they do need to talk about it. They're definitely not going to come home to talk about it. So who are they going to go to? And where they're going to go, those doors are wide open. Their arms are wide open to give them the hugs and cuddles that they need to be embraced. So this is something that we need to think about as a bigger picture. The second image from a high viewpoint that I want to see is the way God and the way religion and the way spirituality was introduced to many of us. What was that narrative? What was that story? Was it that of love, joy, connectedness? Was it that of freedom, choice? Or was it introduced to us as the wrath and the punishment and the hellfire? Because that narrative makes an absolute difference as to how we see what we see today, how we believe what we believe today. The child seemed very compliant at one stage while they were under our wings, and while we took them to our centers, they came. They did what we told them to do because they had no choice. They had no voice. But as soon as they had any form of autonomy, they rejected the entire narrative. And we need to ask ourselves the questions as to why that might be. And individual stories might be very, very different, but the overarching thing, you might see that there is a lot of correlation in that. It's hard for parents from, you know, when they're in a place of longing and desperation, because it's natural for kids to go through certain phases and for them to seek certain friends and for them to find their own identities and go to other adults to find whatever they are, like teachers and inspectors and, you know, guidance that they get from other people. But if we don't have open door policy in our homes, then, and if we are filled with criticism and nagging and always lecturing, and when we get the message that you're poking your nose in our business, and, you know, when we're trying to guide them, it's a very, very difficult place for parents to be. But again, the question is, how did we get to that place in the first place? This is all down to what kind of a relationship we have with our children. What kind of a bond have we built with our children? This building bond starts from a very, very early age, from the very first word they speak, and even way, way before that as well. When you listen to every tiny little thing that they have to share, then they will be comfortable in sharing the big things that they are even scared of sharing, because they know that there is an open door policy for me. And most parents ask these questions when the water is way above their head already, right? And now it's a matter of cure and not prevention. And we all need that. We all know that prevention is way easier process than cure is, but a lot of people are at that stage. And I don't mean to be the person who's kind of sounding like bashing the parents. This is not what this session is about, but we do need to have some hard conversations around this and ask ourselves some really difficult questions, because, you know, the truth of it is that parents are also burnt out. They want the very best for their families, right? And the other truth that I want to give, again, as a high level view, we can get into nitty-gritties later on, but our children are here to teach us as well. There is a certain amount of growth we had. There is a certain amount of things that we learned through our own experiences, through whatever we went through. It taught us a lot. But then there comes a time when you stopped your growth, wherever you were stunted in certain places. Your child, and especially the black sheep child, especially the most difficult child, especially the one who seems like they've come and destroyed the entire system that we had going, is the one that's there to teach the hardest and the biggest lessons that we ought to learn. So instead of seeing them as this big bad guy that we're having under our roof, trying to see it and turning the camera back in on ourselves and seeing what might be the lesson here. What might I be trying? What is the mirror? Because everybody is a mirror for each other. Why is there a retaliation? What is the friction? What is the resistance here? And what is it carrying inside of it? Because there will be absolutely a really beautiful message for parents. So overall, we've come to this place with a lot of hardship and a lot of other contexts, a lot of other things taking place. So it's not just about families. It's not just about communities. There's a lot more going on. And we just need to have a real hard think about that and have a bit of an analysis and work our way backwards and have maybe like a gap analysis now to where we are and where we started and what's been going on in between, how might that have played a part in where we are today.
That's amazing. And I think it speaks to so many of us. I think every parent can probably relate to what you're saying. Sister Sharoz, I want to look at, apart from just us as a parent, as Sister Uzma was, mentioning this, it just came to my mind that the whole system that she's talking about that is there to misguide, to take our children away from us, to take our community members away from us. Parents is one thing. Like she said, it's like, a lot of times you don't see it coming. It's by the time you realize it happened,
Yes.
it's already happened. But now this is talking about individual families. We've talked about community. How prepared are we or not prepared in terms of a whole community to address these issues? Because, from my perspective, to be honest, I feel like instead of us having systems to support individual family and cases, we actually are doing the opposite in some circumstances. So, for example, our mosques. I hear young people these days saying, I have no interest in going to mosque at all. And when I compare, I realize that, it is easy to say, oh, these children of today, but when you genuinely look at it, we loved going to mosque. The reason were our mosques were very welcoming. When we went to mosques, there was a lot of acceptance in some manners. And I'm not saying all the mosques are the same. I don't want to, paint everybody the same brush, but we are a judgmental community. We get these young people, teenagers, sometimes maybe not dressed as the exact way they're supposed to be dressed. They may come to mosque and not have the exact etiquette that we expect from our young people, and we are so judgmental. I see this starting from very young children. There was one time when we were growing up, we used to sit with our mothers in the hall, and we had to see through the lectures whether we understood them or not. Today, we have separated our children, send them to this class and send them this place, and we don't sit with our children. We don't teach them the love of, for example, praying with us. Then suddenly they are grown up and they are not there, and we're wondering why are they not coming to mosque? We took that away from them. So as a community, do you feel, and even maybe as families, again, same concepts, we learned, namaz, for example, praying with our mothers and our fathers. We used to, I know in a lot of our communities on a Thursday, we would sit together and recite majlis and recite dua-e-komel. The families are too busy today. So it's easy to blame these children, but as a community and families, are we failing them? Have we not been able to, this concept of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar is a lot broader than just telling somebody this is right and wrong. Yeah, this all comes within Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar in a manner that is befitting the times.
Absolutely. The community needs to be very welcoming when we people, not only young people, but people of all ages. Nowadays, as Sister Uzma has talked about, this society and all the pressures and all the haram things that are beckoning to us, We're all victim of this. We're all into social media. We're all getting caught up in some very questionable thinking and practices as well. So yes, the pressures are on all of us, and all of us need a welcoming environment when we come to the mosque. Having said that, and our communities need to be very welcoming to people who are struggling with their faith. Having said that, I also do want to say that our communities are working very hard as well to really rise to the occasion. Now, with so many English speakers coming in, and we're in fact giving up our, the languages that we loved to hear majlis in, and we are actually sitting with the youth in the English hall and attempting to hear it in their language that they love, and to get into the discourse that is asking questions, the difficult questions. So I think our community is working hard. I think that alhamdulillah, Islam has given us this incredible and very important tool, which is Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. And absolutely, there are conditions to it. It has to be done in a very beautiful, loving, gentle kind way. Even the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is told in the Holy Quran by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it is Allah guiding you, that you don't come in, you don't present yourself in a harsh way with them, right? This whole judgmental thing, even the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was working with people who were doing things that were abhorrent, and he had to very calmly and gently and lovingly bring them, and Allah gives us that. With Amr bil Maruf, though, this is something we cannot stop doing. And if I can take us to the Quranic ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it here, that this is a command. Let there be arising from you a nation, inviting all to that is good, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong. Those will be successful. This takes us back to what Mr. Uzma was talking about. We parents need to have the difficult conversations. We need to keep guiding, though. Just because there are difficult questions coming from them, or a lot of skepticism, a lot of disobedience, a lot of scorn, doesn't mean we start thinking like them. And we start also questioning our faith. We need to remain steadfast. Someone has to be. Otherwise, we're all going to go with this tidal wave, this tsunami that's taking over. And so just because they ask some questions that make our religion often look inconsistent or contradictory, we also need to be, if we need to know our religion, we need to know so that we can guide them. We can't be just taken into when them say, well, that doesn't make sense, and of course it's like that, because that is, remember, Shaitan's not going to let our children just go. This is the Pied Piper who will take the entire community and take them into the ocean with him, right? The Pied Piper, the famous story, the legend was about the children of the community being taken, and the community could do nothing. That's because that Pied Piper had a beef with the community people. Shaitan is against us. He will definitely misguide us, but we cannot sit back. This next ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about us being allies of one another. The men and women, we all of us, the entire community of all ages, we have to enjoy what is right, forbid what is wrong, and we have to establish prayer, and we have to give zakah, we have to obey Allah. We have to do all this. This means definitely making like the iman part happen, but also the practice of the faith also. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ has cautioned us that we will always be with goodness as long as we keep doing this Amr bil Maruf, Nahi anil Munkar. This doesn't mean judging others on the community. It's about sitting at home and saying, children, in this family, why is it Salah time and people are listening to music? No one even is aware of Salah. Why has no one done this? No one done that? What are we doing? Let's sit and assess ourselves. We have to assist one another in piety, right? On one hand, yes, we feel we shouldn't be forcing our children to pray, but it is definitely incumbent upon us to bring them to the prayer mat in a very loving, gentle way, but still bring them. We can't just say they're on a journey, let them be, because look at what the Prophet says. If they did not do that, then blessings will be taken away from them. And some of them what will happen? We'll get these terrible rulers upon us. There'll be no helpers. We will allow our own destruction. And Imam Ali Islam also has mirrored this, that do not abandon it. Otherwise, evil people among you will take charge over you. and then you will be supplicating and you will not be answered. This means we cannot let our children, we can't let them run loose. We just can't. And this also comes to our adults as well. Believe me, I am in conversation with some adults, even 79-year-olds, who are not praying salah, who are saying, I believe in Allah, I love imams, I love everything, but I can't do salah. No, I just can't do it. How is this a thing? How can it happen? We need to shake each other and keep working on each other. And I would like to add here that these are actually the rules of our faith. Aga Sistani has actually, in his rulings, 1868, and please do look this up. And mashallah, there is a book printed by the World Federation, which is online, New Islamic Law Book. Okay, and that's by Ayatollah Sistani. It's islamiclaws.com/Amr bil Maruf. You know, if you search Amr bil Maruf, this book should come up, inshallah. But it gives us the rulings for what happens to people like us who are seeing people in the family not praying, or who are not talking to each other. They're doing qatiram, that's haram. Who are not doing hijab, who are doing open, God forbid, lewd acts, doing haram acts. We need to step in. And what happens is that as parents, it is obligatory upon us as brothers and sisters, as spouses, that we do Amr bil Maruf. Charity begins at home. Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar also begins at home. And in this ruling, there's actually 5 things. There's 5 conditions that need to be followed. First of all, to be doing Amr bil Maruf, you have to work on somebody who has knowledge of what is wajib and haram. So therefore, the knowledge has to be given to this person. Now here, I want to take a moment to say, these children of ours who are, unfortunately gotten all these pressures, and people are giving them all this negative propaganda about Islam and about this and about that, they also need to come down a few notches. They also need to open their hearts to hidayat. When someone is doing Amr bil Maruf and Nahy al Munkar, there needs to be humility. There needs to be, give somebody some space to be able to explain things to you, to guide you. When this rolling of the eyes and don't talk to me about this, or are we going to do this lecture again? You will be lost. And this not only for our young, but for even our old. How many ladies in the community, the minute you start talking about hijab, they get upset and they say, don't talk about this topic. In fact, we don't want this Zakira or this Maulana because they talk about hijab. We don't want to be guided. How scary is that? Number 2, one of the conditions that Aga Sistani talks about is that you have to have a belief that even a small one, that this sin will be reduced if you speak up. There has to be this an akhtiyat wajib, to express one's displeasure through one's actions or words. When a daughter of ours, God forbid, stops wearing hijab, a son stops praying, someone in the family is not fasting, we as grandmothers, as uncles, as aunts, we do need to be able to very sweetly and gently say, honey, why are you doing this? And you know what? I have talked to some youth who say, well, when I took off my hijab, I thought I would have a real backlash. But mashallah, my family members have taken it so well. No one said a word. And you know what that does? It allows you to think everyone's very much okay with what you're doing, and allows you to think you're okay. And this is why we feel that we're fine when we do haram acts.
I'm just going to stop you for 1 second here, Sister Sharos, because I think what you are saying is very, very important. But I also think there is another aspect to that, another viewpoint to this. And I want to bring you in, Sister Uzma here, because I think, this fact that young people may feel very judged, or for example, somebody who's taken off their hijab, and on the other hand, they feel like, opposite to what Sister Sharos was saying, they feel like, everybody is not accepting of them anymore. Isn't that actually driving them further away, like, taking them further away because there is no understanding and there is judgment? How do you see it?
There's definitely have to be a balance. I just want to add here, I'm not saying just go and shout at that child and be judgmental, but I'm saying that Islamically, Aga Sistani says we have to express displeasure. The family members need to talk about the elephant in the room and say, we notice you're not praying salah. We notice you are not you're not coming to the azadari. Something is happening here. And this is not good. We have to. And yes, our children feel judged the minute you point out, even if something's small, they're very sensitive. And this is again a plea to the children of our community and also our adults. Allow your heart to open to be judged.
I want to see I want to see the other side of it, because when you talk to the young people, they this is what you're saying, Sister Shadows, is us all parents, this is how we see it, and we all feel like I want to just shake them up and make them listen to what I want to say, because it makes sense. But from their perspective, they don't see
shake them up. We have to express displeasure. We have to bring them the Islamic knowledge. We have to keep praying for them, and we have to keep guiding them. We cannot.
But a lot of times, I just want, a lot of times, like their reluctance, is like you said, it's not just about them being up high, they're not wanting to come down a notch. A lot of times, these children are going through some form of mental health issues. Now, there may be different things. Sometimes it's used an excuse, but a lot of times it may not be something that is so obvious, but there may be certain levels of mental health which is pushing them where they are and what they're doing. Sister Osman, what's your view on that?
A beautiful question, and Zakira Sharos amazingly covered the beautiful points. And I do completely see and agree. Of course, these are rulings in our deen for a reason. And if we gave up on those, it would have a detrimental effect. On the same note, though, we do also have to consider the societal pressure that I was mentioning and how we got to where we are today, and we have to take that into account. See, whenever it comes to parenting, a parent-child relationship always starts with the parent. That's what I always say. It starts with the parent first and foremost. So, let's start at the beginning with the parent, of that even before you attempt trying to support and hold a safe space for your child, we, the parents, you, the parent, need to factor in your own support system as well. Because a lot of the times the parents themselves are going through an absolute turmoil. And one of the points that I want to cover here is the reason they won't even seek support is what am I going to be talked about? And it's such a it frustrates me. And I talk about this, and I probably will touch on it as I go. But basically, you need to think about having some support for your own self. Parents, it's always starting with you. So check in on how you're feeling first and foremost, because whenever you're going to approach anybody with the notion, I'm right, you're wrong, fix it, you have lost that battle from the word go. You're getting nowhere in that discussion anytime soon. So don't rage, don't battle, don't get into that whole this is all going wrong, because we're so zoomed in onto the particular aspect of the thing that's going wrong that we forget to see the bigger picture of how we're feeling and how that's actually impacting us, how your relationship was with your parents, how you grew up, what was your environment, were you compliant, were you rebellious, how did you come to where you are? All of this analysis needs to happen before you even go into that room knocking on the door asking for questions. So this analysis actually will give you the space to evaluate your own feelings and where they originate from, right? Because we want to, it's really nice to cover it up to say, we just want our children to be, following deen. But there is so much, but that's the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, that's the result we want. But there is so much more engulfed within that we have to depict and understand, right? So you must give yourself some time to rise the emotions up, feel the feelings, and get an understanding of what you're trying to do, first of all, and why you're trying to do it. Now, this sounds like a thick question, and I'm sorry to have to put it to you like that, but if you actually ask yourself the question, why am I wanting the result that I'm wanting, you will be surprised at the type of answers you get from within your own self. And it might not be just as plain and simple as, I just want my children to follow the deen. There'll be a lot more wrapped onto that. Whenever you approach anything, and if you're already feeling on the edge, and if you're already feeling burnt out and alone in this battle, and you're already wearing like 10 different hats, and you're trying to master all of them all at the same time, I just want to break it to you that it's not possible. So this is where one of the aspects that's broken in our community now needs to come in. We've shifted away from this communal gatherings where we could just freely say what we need to say, where an adult or an older person had a space to say what they needed to say, and we would simply listen or give them the space not necessarily follow, but at least give them the space. That's been dismantled from our community. So rebuilding that community as a first point, that's what I want to start with, that expand your own circle first and foremost. Start with that. So when you can come together with a group of people who have the common language, common science, common symbols, common things that you want to bring together, then you are a much more powerful being. You will have 10 different perspectives to come from, right? And that's a really, really helpful place to be. Once you move out of that blame and of the judgment space towards your own self, towards your own family, towards your own husband, towards your own parents, and towards your child, more specifically, only then are you able to even approach this with compassion, because compassion ain't going to come while you go with that mindset. It's just not going to happen, right? So being able to take a step back and being able to take a deep breath and being able to take off your emotional baggage and place it somewhere is going to be hugely helpful for you, because it's going to frame your whole thought process and reconnect with your child from a starting point rather than rising up here. Like that is not a good place to start any kind of a conversation. So this is where we get to start to understand our own selves, that our children are in the process of their journey. They are growing, and we have gotten somewhere, and we want to pull them along as quickly as possible, because if they don't, then we're going to be painted as a certain parent in our community, in our society, and oh my God, it's all gone. This creates a lot of friction, a lot of resistance, a lot of frustration, and it only drives our child far, far away from us, right? And the purpose of it is completely gone as well. So you're not going to be able to do what you're trying to do. And I guess what I'm trying to ask you to do here is zoom out, like as I was saying earlier, zoom out of the specific situations. Right? I always say this, and it sounds bad and controversial, especially in the topic of today. But honestly, having spoken to literally hundreds of people that go through this, most of the kids are going through the phases that they need to go through of exploring and finding themselves and trying to find their feet in the society that they have landed themselves in through us. We made that choice, as I said earlier, right? That has an impact. So we're going to have to take it on the chin, because we made that choice. And now we're going to have to allow them to, not fully, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying here that let your children go and do whatever the hell they want. I'm saying that we still have to provide some form of a space, right? While trying to guide this. And I appreciate that some of our values, some of the most important values, may be trampled all over. But the bottom line is that too much pushing and too much emotion and too much rage in all of this is absolutely going to push them away to a point where they are going to be not returning at all. So uphold your own values first and foremost. Live by your own values. Showcase your own values in every step you take, in every breath you take, in every transaction you make, in every interaction you make. You are their guide system through your actions first and foremost. You would be shocked at how much impact that has. Not in the moment, though. And because we're looking for quick fixes, and because we live in a fast-paced world where everything happens yesterday, that's what we want for our children as well. And what that robs them of is being able to find their own feet of their own thought processes. And then when they later on, in whichever stage this happens, because either we can allow that to happen in their teens, or we stop that and suppress it in their teens, and then they come out because they have their full autonomy when they become a parent. They're all out. You would be surprised at how many mid-aged children that aren't children anymore, that are parents themselves, are outrageously doing things that they really, really shouldn't be doing. That's the result of suppressing that journey when they needed to let out what they needed to let out, because we exposed them to all this and we said, don't look, don't hear, don't be present, don't do any of that, because you're not allowed. They are. Let them. Just watch them. Don't do any of it. It's so unrealistic, and it's so difficult even to have that kind of an expectation, right? And one of the biggest mistakes that parents make is pick the worst moments to have some incredibly important discussions. Like when the child is, this is a trivial example, but when the child is playing a PlayStation game, they want to have a discussion about Salah. It's obviously not going to go well. It's not going in the right place. It's not going to work. And that time, they're not going to get up at that moment, right? So the way to find the right time, not just for that moment in thing, is really about building a bond. So this zooming that I'm talking about, zooming out of what they're wearing, zooming out of what they're, what they're engaged in to some extent, as much as it hurts you, zoom out of whatever it is that's irritating you, and definitely zooming out of what other people will say. Please, I beg you, for the love of God, stop thinking about how you're going to be perceived in the community. That's the last battle you want to fight, last battle on your plate, right? And so once you get to a place where you know that this is the right moment to sit and chat about things, about other things, then it's a whole different discussion altogether, right? You've got them at their attention. And I think in actuality, the bonding obviously starts way sooner. And a lot of the parents, like you said earlier, Sister Sakina, that you don't realize it just happens right under your nose, and suddenly they emerge as a whole different version of themselves that you had no idea that was even locked up inside of them. So all of that was brewing and coming up. And one of the reasons parents don't realize that was coming was because of lack of bonding, because of we have bonds, we love each other, of course we do, right? But what I mean is the real nitty-gritty, down to detail type of a bonding, we don't know about their lives. They don't know about our lives. The relationship needs repairing. Right? It's never beyond repair, by the way. Wherever you're breathing, wherever they're breathing, it's never, ever too late. But it takes work. It's harder at teenage years, right? Because they are building their own identity. They've got their own circle of people that they trust, they like, they want to be like, they are trying to follow, they're trying to, become a person of their own, right? And sadly, most of the times, you or me as the parent are not included in that circle. Most of the times they don't want to tell us what's going on, right? Parents are often the last people, if at all, in that circle, depending on how the relationship is. But let's look at it in a completely different way. Pivot the way that we're looking at this being all doom and gloom. It isn't such a terrible thing as it may seem. They are figuring things out, including religion. You would be so shocked to understand how many teenagers are actually having these discussions with other people or Googling things about the religion, right? You don't know about that because they wouldn't even have that conversation with you. We need to provide them with some breathing space as well as having some guidance, but placing it in the right time and right space. We cannot be breathing down their necks. We cannot become a helicopter parent who's constantly hovering over them, suspecting them, asking them questions. Why did you, constant. Oh my God, it's so much nagging, right? And none of these strategies will ever bring you closer. Never mind repair, you're damaging it even further. They need time, they need effort, they need energy. So that in the right way, at that right time, is going to be more fruitful for you. So stay connected, right? And even if you're in the background, they should know that you have their back no matter what they come home with. Whatever phase they bring home, if your daughter comes home with the pink flicks and you're like, what the hell just happened? It's a phase. At their 40s, hopefully they're not going to come home with pink flicks. I'm not saying just allow everything. Please don't get me wrong. But I am saying that when we retaliate with absolutely everything, you're causing more rifts. And these mental health issues that we're talking about, they're on the rise because there is all those pressures. And then they come home and they have the pressure at home as well. They have no place. They have no safety. They have no home. And when we are literally nitpicking absolutely everything, the home that they have, they lose that as well. So a few ways that I want to just mention, that the ways to actually start to do that: get to know their interests. Start basic, get to know their interests. A lot of the times parents don't know what their kids are interested in. Analyze them, just watch them. Give yourself a whole week of, I'm just going to watch my kid. Right? What do they like? What do they dislike? What do they detest? What do they love? Which games do they play? Who do they play with? Who are they talking to? And then once you get that analysis, once you have a little bit of a data of what's going on with them, how do they sit? When do they do things? Then try to fit in, almost like plug in yourself into those things. Even if you don't like them, even there's a specific game that they play and you're like, it's nothing to do with my liking. It's not about you. It's about trying to repair some of the damage. So go sit with them. Even if you're sitting there silently, just watch, just smile, just from afar, right? Engage. If they ask question like, what's that character doing? Why are they doing that? Or whatever, just trying to show some interest in what they are doing to start up a conversation that might be completely irrelevant, nothing to do with religion whatsoever. Another way is cooking and eating together. I know a coach who has an entire business specifically for this, mothers or parents and teenage children, to create bonds, to like actually cook together, like prep meals together or something like that. Or even if it's not food, if that's not their interest, any other type of thing that where you can spend some quality time together in the choice of their thing. And that will create some one-on-one time. In uninterruptible time, no distractions, it's just the two of you. And in that time, don't spark up the conversation about religion. Leave that on the back burner. That's not to be discussed right now. You're just building a bond. You're repairing a relationship. And in that time, the subjects that you know are going to bring and rile things up, leave them for a bit, right? One of the really cutest things that I often do, and it's really, really helpful, is bringing out old photo albums of their childhood. Right. And just, it brings a smile to their face. You'd be surprised at how much they absolutely love to hear about their growing up and what they did and what they loved. This kind of attention is just gold to them. Their old handwritten notebooks from school, or simply when they were younger, what they were like, certain incidents that you can talk about, funny childhood stories. Have a great laugh together, let loose, be so friendly, like they're a bit like shocked as to what's going on. Don't let it out that this is anything to do with gearing up towards a different conversation. No, you're just simply repairing your, bond with your child. Become so much more playful. And come up with certain rituals, something that you together can do, and it becomes a regular thing. Like maybe on a weekly basis, if you have a daughter of a certain age, it's a coffee date. Like that's what you're regularly doing. Friday evenings, that's your mother and daughter time, and you do that on a regular basis. Another way is to get to know their friends. Invite them over, let them chill for the evening, cook them their favorite meal so that they can bond with their friends, and you're completely cool with that. And one of the most powerful ways that I found is to become vulnerable with your children. Obviously, it depends on the age of the child, right? But honestly, this is so powerful. This is so powerful. Just coming clean about the failures, the things that you could have done better, that you didn't do as well as you could have. Own up to them. I didn't know. I thought I was doing the right thing. I had no idea. Now I'm learning new things. And now I'm getting to know this. And I found out that this might have affected you in this way. And I'm so deeply sorry that I made you feel like that, because I genuinely did not want to. And really coming clean and have a cry with them, God's sake. Like, they're your children. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. And you might see a tear from their eyes too, because they're holding up so much. You would be shocked. I keep saying this because it's true. I speak to people like this. When you see like these videos of people giving homeless people like a meal or money or something like that, and they just burst out crying. They just can't hold it in, because the first amount of genuine kindness, it uncovers something internally for you, right? So step closer by becoming vulnerable, by starting to rebuild some of that broken trust, and this will really, really help you to repair some of the damage that has been done. These heart-to-heart conversations are where you might have messed up, and how you might have messed up, and what your story is, what you might have been through, how you were taught, and how that wasn't the right way, and how that didn't serve you. It all makes you human. It all shows you to be a normal person who went through a normal struggles, just like they're going through, and you get it. You get it. You're there to just allow things to bubble up to the surface, and that's just fine. And while you listen and express this love and care for your child, while they are ranting and complaining and upset even, you will find that sometimes when you give them that space, they will start to play up even more. I want you to be okay with that, because think about it this way. Let's say like a child goes to school, or they go to nursery or whatever, and they come back in the evening and they have the biggest major tantrums. And often parents are like, I just met them. I haven't done anything. It's because they've been bottling up so many emotions. They got told to put this there and pick that thing and do this and do that and don't do this. Throughout the day, they kept it in because they didn't have the safe space to let it out. And then they've come to you, and you're their safety. And when you provide them with that space where it does feel safe, they will bring up whatever is held up inside of them. So allow them that space, anchor that space, be there, present in that space, really realize that this moment is there. You need to own that moment, lend the ear as much as you possibly can, as difficult as it might be. You are the parent, they are the child, you are providing something that they are working through, these difficulties. These mental health challenges are taking away lives. If we push them far enough and their life is taken, is that better, or allowing them some space to get to a realization that God is the only truth? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you will only come back to me. I am your only spot. Otherwise, go and find another Lord in another universe somewhere, because there is no other place to go. They will come back to this. The truth is always the truth. Truth is going to remain the truth no matter what you do. Let them go through what they need to go through. I'm very certain that everybody who's listening to, I talk about myself, I can't really say it about anybody else. I did not get to where I am without my struggles, without my fair share of sins, without my fair share of stuff that if you knew, you probably wouldn't even talk to me, honestly, right? So we're all filled with baggage. We didn't get to anywhere without struggle. So allow them to struggle. Not to a point where you let them go, but please, when you see that they find you fully present, they find you fully available, they find you fully accepting, they will open up to you. My hand on my heart, I promise you this will happen. It will turn around for you, inshallah.
SubhanAllah, I can't believe we've gone way past an hour and this has been so engaging. No, absolutely no apologies, because it's been so amazing. And I just feel that there are so many more questions, than what do we even when we got into it. And inshallah, going forward, we will have time to explore other issues. And for our viewers, if these are very important issues, and I know there's a lot of you struggling with these things, please do send in your questions, anything that you heard today and you want clarifications, do send us, a comment on this stream so that we can try and address these issues. All I can say in conclusion is there is no, doubt why we are told that parenting is next to prophethood. Mothering is next to prophethood, because this is really a tough job, and especially in this era. But then again, like, Sister Uzma, Sister Shairoz were telling us, my belief always at the end of the day is to say, when you feel like you are overwhelmed and you don't know anymore what to do, you know that you're not alone. You just reach out to Him who is there. And for me, it's always to say that all I am asking you, Allah, is for them to be there for you. And I'm not asking for a worldly thing. I'm not asking for anything materialistic. All I am saying is the love I have for you, give that love to my children, to my family. And God, this is the God we've been hearing about in this holy month, about how loving this God is, how merciful this God is. It is just not believable that He is not listening to us, that He will not hold us and He will not guide our children. So whatever the journey is, that is something we have to hold on to, that this is such a beautiful, loving Allah. And from a mother's heart, when you pray for your children's guidance, Allah will listen to us. And with that, wassalam.